Ted Oladele grew up as an pastor in Ikorodu.
I started playing the drums at a very young age, which just tethered me to my parents. Any church they go, I follow.
His childhood friends included the rapper Zlatan and fashion entrepreneur Yinka Ashogbon of Ashlogs. Long before they found fame, these Ikorodu boys were just kids with ambition. Ted's passion was design. His first work experience came at Hotels.Ng, a brief stint but a meaningful one. The house Yabatech built has become one of the most respected training grounds in Nigeria's tech ecosystem.
Did the interview and I was like, yo, you're good. Start right now.
From there, he moved to Delivery Science, where several colleagues would later go on to build a payments company called Paystar. Ted chose a different path, joining Flutterwave. Over the next 8 years, he rose steadily from a product designer to Vice President of Product and Design. It was during this time that Flutterwave, led by Olugbenga GB Agbola, became the fourth African company to reach unicorn status, a valuation of over $1 billion. After Flutterwave, Ted built Mira, a point-of-sale system that helped thousands of businesses manage operations, process orders, and collect payments. Mira was recently acquired by Childek, where Ted now serves as head of product. This is the story of how Ted Oladele became an overnight success. Hi, welcome to another episode of Overnight Success. My name is Oluwamayawa, and today I am joined by design guy, Ted Oladele. Hi, Ted.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
For making the time to, come and... I feel like I've seen you in the comments before.
Yeah. I'm a fan.
Yeah. So, you understand the format of the show. So when I speak to people here, first of all, starts with just a personality test of some sorts.
Got it.
So, rewind time.
Okay.
Or time travel. Which and why?
Time travel. I don't know. I just feel like my future is so bright, and I can't wait to
energy.
Can't wait to get there.
Energy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it back. You grew up as an animal pastor.
Yeah. Still one, to be honest.
Yeah, but growing up, how did that shape you?
That's quite interesting because I think there were different parts to it. At first, I was not a normal pastor, and I think up until I was 5, right? My dad used to attend the White Garment Church. I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure which one of them, but like one of the White Garment churches. And my mom was Muslim, or was raised Muslim, and then she converted to Christianity, became born again before my dad. And then I guess we switched from White Garment churches into like the Pentecostal one, Redeem to be specific. And honestly, I think it shaped my life positively, and to be honest, negatively. Because I started playing the drums at a very young age, which just tethered me to my parents. So any church they go, I follow, and we're moving around a lot, waking up very early. And the easiest thing to make on a Sunday morning was noodles, right? Indomie to be specific. But here's the thing. My mom would put the Indomie in a flask, and by the time we get to church, it's already like cold. And then it's like sticky. Yeah, it's just nasty, to be honest. It was fun while it lasted, but I guess the pressure, maybe not pressure, the expectation was just weird. It's like you're expected to always act a certain way. You're expected to be prayerful. You're expected to know the Bible. I wasn't about that life. So as soon as I could, and I think at about age 16, 17, I stopped going to my parents' church. I told them that I was picking a different church and it was good, and they know the pastor and all of that. But that was a lie. I was getting paid to play the drums.
So wait, another church basically put you to come and be playing the drums.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
and
okay.
I would move around because like whoever was going to pay the
so you were for the highest bidder.
I was loyal to the money or the craft. as well, because I was also looking for the church with the like best, musical instruments or the best choir and stuff like that. Until eventually I just stopped going to church altogether. And that's where I'm at now.
You were born in K2, but you grew
Yeah.
up in Ikorodu.
How did you know that? But yes.
So I feel like I've seen you say that Ikorodu is somewhere that, because it's secluded, people want to get away
Yeah.
from it very quickly.
Yeah.
But I also think it's had such like an impact on us culturally.
Yep.
So I think what I want to know more about is what the experience of growing up was like, and why do you think this place has been so kind of crucial to our culture?
Yeah. So Ikorodu, people say Ikorodu is far, right? Or it's like outskirts of Lagos. Depends on how you're thinking about it. You may be right, you may be wrong. But I think for me, we moved to Ikorodu when Ikorodu was still very bushy, right? Or foresty or whatever, right? And like, I think that's the same experience for most people. So Ikorodu is where like our parents, essentially decided to go and build their own, house. And because of that, I think it was very family centric, right? Some places, right? Because they always fight, Ikorodu garage, cultism, government college students, always fighting against each other and stuff like that. But I don't think I really experienced that, right? Because while I was in Ikorodu, I was in a very funny place called Agbede.
I
Very
know,
interesting names.
I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I think I know someone from there, but
A lot of people, a lot of people from there, like myself, Dayo, or also known as Zlatan now.
we're coming to that.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, I schooled there, but the school, it's called ZK College. They still exist, but God rest their soul, they're not that good anymore, unfortunately. But they were pretty much one of the best schools in Lagos.
Okay.
Right? Even though it was in Ikorodu, it was ridiculous. We kept winning like awards, mathematics, sports, and stuff. It was a fantastic school, fantastic experience. I think because of the way it was family centric, we felt safe, right? So our parents would pay for school bus, but we'll just walk home together as a group and just playing on the road, buying cheese balls and stuff like that. So I think that community was very like interesting, which is not something I think you'd get from, I guess, the Ikorodu equivalent.
Okay. And now to what you are hinting at. So when your friend Fuad was on here, Fuad was talking about this article he wants to write on the original Ikorodu boys. And said original Ikorodu boys are you,
Okay.
Zlatan,
Yes.
and Yinka from Ashlocks.
Yes.
So I want you to talk about how it is that three childhood friends became as successful as you guys have been in three different fields.
Yeah.
And after that, I want you to talk about that environment, like what it did that basically brought out that culture of excellence.
Escape. Okay, to be honest, and I think a lot of luck, right? And we all had different journeys, right? So I didn't gain admission into university right after school, but I think Yinka did. So there was that separation for a bit. But also it was just like, why am I here, right? Like, people have gone to schools, whether it's, private uni or like, government schools and stuff like that, but I wasn't getting in. So what I then did was applied for a national diploma for computer science at Yaba College of Technology, right? And well, part-time as well. So I would go to school in the evenings, but it still meant I was in Ikorodu during the day. And I just was not comfortable. To be honest, it was boring. It felt like a lot was happening in Lagos, and I didn't feel like I
You were
was in
connected,
Lagos.
yeah.
Exactly. So what I did was I was very active on Twitter, and also because my phone was how I was learning, how to code and design and stuff like that. One Nokia phone like that, and I came across somebody called Marquesian, who was, I don't know if he was joking, but he was just like, I'm looking for a designer, whatever, whatever. And I applied via his DM and was like, oh, come in tomorrow, come and do an interview. So I went in just before school, did the interview, and I was like, yo, you're good. Start right now. So I started immediately, and I was so happy because I get to leave Ikorodu in the morning and come back at night, which was a whole different ball game because the road was terrible. Yeah. But I enjoyed it. So I think for me and for every one of us as well, it was just about getting out, right? And I guess the kind of things we were exposed to determined, I guess, how we turned out. I was in Yaba, so computer science. Yinka was in Caleb University. They dressed really well, so fashion. Dio was in, geez, I've forgotten his school now. But it was a government school, and I think music was a thing then. So music, which is funny because we didn't see it coming. Dio would have been
A footballer.
fantastic footballer.
Yeah, I know that's why he has the name Zlatan.
An amazing footballer. Yes, that's why we were calling him Zlatan. But music picked off after the Ethel thing, especially. And we're like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So for us, it was just about living in Ikorodu, to be honest. And not because Ikorodu was bad. Ikorodu was safe, but just boring. There was just nothing.
But the point I'm guessing is that it provided the right foundation because
yes.
it kind of,
Community,
yeah,
yeah.
and then you can kind of like build on that.
We were raised by everybody, like neighbors, friends, and stuff. Yeah.
So now, the gap year you took, which you referenced, I think in doing research, I think I heard you say that was like a very formative year for you.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what was going on in that year.
In the insights, like you said, very formative. Then I hated it, right? Because it meant I had to go to my mom's shop, right? So my mom sells frozen food every single day. And I hated it. And I hated it because that was my life. It's like any holiday, right? We're always going to shop and helping out and whatever.
So your holiday life became your day-to-day life.
Exactly. So it was just, but I think because of the boredom, right, I started looking for things to do, right? So I was always on Facebook or to go or whatever. And then I started becoming fascinated by it. Like how are they building this stuff? I was always reading TechCrunch and stuff like that. So I got into, basic HTML and whatever. But I didn't have a computer. But I had that Nokia phone. There's that Nokia phone that looked like a BlackBerry. So it had that
like the keyboard
yes.
thing. Yeah, I remember that.
So it was I would not say it was easy, but I enjoyed it. So that was actually how I learned to code, right? Before I think my mom just got me one very tiny laptop as well. It was that Dell that MTN was using to register SIM cards. I don't know if you remember. That was the moment. And that was the computer I used to properly learn, how to code. Yeah, and all of that happened during that gap year. So getting into Yabatech was another experience because I got into Yabatech, I was excited, but I got bored really quickly because of what they were teaching us. They were teaching us Fortran, and I already knew that this was pointless, right? I could code already, and Fortran was not going to do shit, right? So I was very bored, and I did it essentially to just do it. which is why after ND I just stopped. Like I'm not furthering. Also because I started working. Yeah.
Okay. I think the Yabatech thing, because Yabatech again, it's like its own distinct field where
Yeah.
you're surrounded by
Yeah.
a diverse and very
Very
talented
talented.
range of
Yep.
creatives.
Yep. Yep.
What did that experience for you coming
Yeah.
from coming from it from the point of you're a guy who just started doing this thing like last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you find yourself in this environment. How was
Yeah.
that? How was that for you?
It was really cool, and I think I was able to find my tribe really quickly because of that. So I met people who were just a little more advanced as well, or wherever I was at that point in time. So we bonded over the fact that we were being taught rubbish, right? So like after class, we just stay and then talk about HTML, JavaScript, hackathons. CCO was right there. But I really loved the arts department, right, of Yabatech. I think they have the best art department in the country. Maybe Unilag, right? But Yabatech was really good. So they had like amazing like structures. Just it was incredible being in their
Yeah.
department. So I was there a lot. Unfortunately, I was very introverted. So I didn't make a lot of friends coming out of Yabatech. I had just one friend. So even the group that we were, bonding over and stuff after ND was just
So what I'm curious about, and I say this because I find this a lot with like tech guys, where there's something that like triggers them. So I'll give an example. When I spoke to Femi from Childtech,
yeah.
something he said, he was like, oh, as a child, he was obsessed. He used to wonder why they got low current. And essentially that curiosity
Yeah.
is what led to him becoming an engineer.
Yeah.
So in your case, I think what I'm curious about is when was the first time you had this reckoning of trying to understand how things worked in a design/tech like
Yeah.
POV?
I think it was a movie I watched. And I'm trying to remember what that movie is. I'm not sure if it's The Social Network. I don't think that existed back then. But I know it had to do with Facebook a lot, right?
Okay.
And I just wondered, I think they kept shipping new features and stuff. And like you text somebody and it's like instant messaging. You were poking people, you were liking. All of that was just
as you're saying
fascinating.
this, because the same thing you're saying, like I remember
Yeah.
being obsessed with Facebook and what they did. I remember buying a book about it.
Yeah.
And I think when one feature that they launched that people didn't realize was so powerful was when you could play poker.
Yes.
And people were essentially using it to
Yes.
gamble money.
Yes.
And it was just like, yo, this thing that started as
Yes.
X, like the
Yes.
use case for it is just phenomenal.
That was just it for me, right? It was really Facebook. But I think I already had like affinity for technology, maybe not software. Because I would try to fix things around the house, right? My dad was like that. If it was a plumbing issue, he would just fix it. TV, he would open the TV and I'll just be there looking at what he was doing and just being fascinated. So I started fixing things myself as well, bulbs, sockets, just random things around the house. Also playing the drums. It is tech in some way, right? You have to understand how to tune the drums. So you have tools to make it sound correct. And depending on the size of your church, every Sunday, you most likely have to, set up the drums and then dismantle it after. So all of that was just, I think, subconsciously just shaping my affinity for like creating or just breaking things down. And yeah, my drumming era was really fun.
Okay.
Really fun.
So you spoke earlier about the first job you had, which was working at Hotels.Ng,
Yeah.
the house that's Marquesian built.
Yeah.
Marquesian is a very fascinating guy.
He is.
Honestly, I can't take him seriously. But I respect what he built or what he has built.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I'm very, again, to the point of giving him respect, that Hotels.Ng has been like a very important
You.
pipeline
Yeah.
for the Nigerian tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I know you were there for, it was a short
It
time,
was short. Yeah.
but with the experience that you have, why do you think, what was it about Hotels.Ng that made it such a pivotal like part of the ecosystem?
It was Mark, to be honest, right? I'm not sure about what he does or says on Twitter, but in person, Mark is incredibly smart. But I think it's more about the grit, right? Which is, oh, you've come in, you're a learner, but you have to do this, you have to do it within this time frame, right? And if you don't do it within this time frame, it's acceptable, but you failed as well, right? And it will let you know. So it was about grit. Also because Hotels.Ng was doing something that was very new to the market back then, right? Like remotely and booking hotels online in Nigeria, right? So
It started in Calabar.
it had to it required a lot of like grit and creativity and just out of the box thinking, like how do we go and take pictures of the hotels, right? Some of them don't want to list, but we want to list them anyways, so we cannot take pictures of what the rooms look like, we'll take the pictures of the exterior, right? So just that creativity and grit mostly, right? Mark would come in the morning, and if I remember very like clearly, he had this I think there was Mark and Dom. I think Dom was the co-founder, if I'm remembering correctly. Mark would come in like one Acura vehicle. Dom would come in a Kia Byte with Hotels.Ng printed on it in the morning, and Mark would walk into the office and everybody would just be, Mark is around, Mark is around. It was that kind of guy, but it was also cool in a way, right? I guess he had to be like that. I guess being or looking white in a predominantly black economy or whatever. I don't know what the reasons were, but like I would say it was two things. Just grit. That was just what he. That was that. Like I think it's still his thing, which is if you've decided to do this thing, you just have to commit to it like completely. Like there's no halfway. There's no, oh, this is the goal. The goal is 100%, but 60% is not bad. Like nobody's doing 60%, so we are good. That doesn't matter to Mark. You said you were going to do 100%, so 100% or you failed. So I think that was also what shaped, to be honest, how I turned out largely.
Okay. And then after Hotels.Ng, you moved to Delivery Science.
My fave.
Yeah, and that's the one when I was doing research again that
Yeah.
like you were most expressive
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And you said that was your first experience with a tech job.
Yes. Proper tech job, yeah.
So talk to me about that experience and the lessons you learned, like what it did for you.
Let me tell you about my first day, right, at Delivery Science. I was coming from school, right, Yabatech. So I just took like keke from Yabatech to, I forget where it is now, but it's just one road. Anyways, and I walked in. It was supposed to be an interview. I walked in, and I was just surprised. I dressed well, like I dressed corporate casual. I was wearing shirts, buttoned up, black, with nice jeans and very nice shoes. Like I was very well prepared, or so I thought for the interview. And then I walked in, introduced myself, and they're like, "Oh, cool, grab a seat." And then next thing, everybody in the entire company grabbed a seat as well, and then they formed a circle around me, and I was just there in the middle. They were like, "Yeah, so we're going to start the interview now." And the first question, if I remember correctly, was by Okwe, Father Mary.
Okay.
He was like, "Guy, why are you dressed like this?"
Do you have a picture? Do you have a picture from this?
I don't. I should, but I don't. And I didn't realize what they were talking about until that moment. Because when he said that, I then looked at everybody. These guys were wearing slippers. And when I say slippers, like Dunlop slippers and shorts and t-shirts. And they just looked like they were working from home. And that was when it occurred to me. I was like, yeah, I should be asking you what you guys are wearing, right? And they're like, anyways, if you do get the job, don't dress like this. Just come relaxed and stuff like that. And that's what I mean by that was like my first introduction to what working in tech, really looked like. But why did this shape me? Is that up until that moment, I was just a software engineer, not a designer. But the culture that they were building, or we were building at Delivery Science then, was that the engineers, the front-end engineers, would design as well, right? Just design what you are bringing to life. You're not going to get like a, designer that's just focused on design. We're going to do design and, front-end code. So it was a really well structured environment in terms of expectations, career path-ish. When I say career path, which is like, this is what we think you should do next, right? And just everybody within the company was focused on helping you be better. Like, that was just the thing. It's like, okay, this is your level now, junior. We want you to get to mid-level in 3 months, right? And this is your syllabus. Not the literal syllabus, but like, learn this, learn this, learn this, learn this. When you have any questions, just come. It was also where I learned like so many things, where it's like, you can get into the zone when you're working. So just block your ears. And when you see somebody wearing headphones and on their laptop, the worst thing you can do to that person at that moment is like tap them or distract them. It was a thing. People would scream at
Let me
you.
tell you something funny about that. So when I used to work as a lawyer,
Yeah.
they banned me from wearing headphones because that was my thing. Like always had like headphones on in the office. Like locking in now.
Yeah.
But apparently in that environment, they say you're not. It's not fit and proper.
I've never worked in a formal environment in my life, right? But I was just surrounded by incredible talent, and I became one as well. And when I say incredible talent, there was Ezra, there was Chuka. Many people don't know Chuka, but Chuka is Chuka, right? There were many people, Loknan, Okpe, there was somebody else called Shokpe, fantastic designer as well. It was great. And I loved working there because I was staying in the hostel. So I would just walk from work or from school to work and then from work back home, right? And it was really cool. Fridays, we'd play games. Every break time, we'd play games on the PlayStation. It didn't feel real. And on top of that, we were doing incredible work, right? Like, that's why, like, I think back then it was referred to as the only actual technology company, right? Because that's what we're doing. It was just pure tech, pure coding, and it was in the name as well. So it was, that place shaped my life. Actually, that was the place that shaped my life, and I think I did that for a couple years, maybe 2 years, before we all kind of moved on, right? It's complicated, but also, Ezra and Okwe went to start Paystack. 1 year later, I joined Flutterwave.
You moved on to Flutterwave as a product designer. And you moved on to Flutterwave before Flutterwave became a unicorn.
Yeah.
And by the time you left,
Yeah.
you were VP of design.
And product.
Sorry. VP of design and product. So let's unpack that journey. Like, talk to me about it.
It was interesting. So I think before then, there's this forum called Radar. Radar.
Yeah, no, Radar. Talk about.
It's always popping, Ezra, and of course I was on Paystack side because they are my guys, right? We worked together.
Damn.
Exactly.
I always work for the ops.
Yeah. So, and there was always that battle of Paystack versus Flutterwave or whatever.
Your guys didn't give you a job.
And I was always on Paystack side. Funny story. I don't think I was ready back then. But then I was in the gym. I don't know what I was doing in the gym then. I was very skinny, and I think I was trying to bulk up or whatever. And then instead of going to like a different gym, I went to CrossFit. I'm not going to bulk
Oh
up
my
at CrossFit.
goodness!
But,
Even I had that type of movement.
yeah, but I was fit. Anyways, so I met somebody called Ridwan, right, at the gym.
Is it the read one? The read one
of Lemfi, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Just
Yeah, it was at Flutterwave as at that time. And then he just walked up to me and like, oh, I think I know you. I'm like, I don't know if you know me, but I know you now. Yeah, read one. And then it was like, oh, like, I learned you worked on Dev Center. So Dev Center was something Okpe and I and a group of other people were working on. It's like a community of designers or developers. And I was like, yeah, I worked on the latest, redesign or stuff like that. I was like, oh, you're good. Do you know about Flutterwave? I'm like, I'm like, I do. I know about Flutterwave. And I was like, you should come join. We are looking for a designer. And I was like, I don't know. It was like, no, like, I'm telling you, you should come and join. And guess what I did? I went to visit Okpe in his house. If I remember, it was a morning. He was playing games. I was like, Oga, Flutterwave says I should come and join them. But man, I don't know. I'd rather wait to be able to join, Paystack. And Okwe was like, what are you talking about? Are you looking at what's happening online? That's a solid company. You better go and join that company. And yeah, I called Ridwan and I was like, okay, let's
I've done my research.
Yeah, let's do this. But I was still kind of like, skeptical and stuff like that. And it was like, okay, fantastic. And I should have known what I was getting into because I resumed on a Saturday. Ridwan was just like, oh, come to the office on Saturday. I want you to meet somebody. I thought I was going to meet Inye, right? I walked into the office and met a couple of other people because apparently Ridwan was assembling what I'll call the Avengers, right? So I met every other new person there. I would meet my best friend now there as well. And then somebody walked in wearing a t-shirt, a little bit tall, Afro-ish. And he came in, was like, oh, hi, everybody. Ridwan, how are you? Meet me upstairs or whatever. I went upstairs. And then Ridwan came back. I'm like, oh, yeah, Ted, come and meet GB. Right? I was like, who is GB? And I was like, yeah, CTO. I was like, oh, okay, makes sense. So I would meet GB. GB would sell the vision, right? So it's like, look, let's do this thing.
Everyone talks very funny about the GB as a seller.
GB is a seller. He sold me dreams, right? Thankfully, it worked out. He sold me dreams. Oh my God. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, I already accepted. So let's do this. And then it was like, oh, first things first, we want to build like an actual product because as at then, Flutterwave was just an API-based product.
Yeah.
There was no product. So it's like, cool, let's do this. And then it was just the responsibility of the team. And the rest, they say, is history. It was an amazing team. We were so good. It was myself, it was Ridwan, it was Henry, who's still at Flutterwave, it was Nosa, who's still at Flutterwave, it was Deji, it's no longer at Flutterwave, myself. It was just like an incredible team of talented individual. And GB was a visionary as well because he didn't know us, but he trusted Ridwan to have assembled a great team. So he essentially told us what he was looking for, but it was up to us, really.
Okay.
To kind of like bring, just do stuff. Yeah.
So one thing I want to unpack about that is these days people don't work at companies for a long time. Or if people are very, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But I think it says something to have staying power, to be in a company, particularly a company like that grew the way Flutterwave did.
Yeah.
And for you to have joined, as you said, when it was, you guys were an API product.
Yeah.
and then you guys actually now started shipping out a bunch of products.
Yep.
So I think what I'm curious about on two levels is one, how the hell did you survive in that environment? And how did you ensure that as the company grew, it wasn't leaving you behind? So you were growing with it.
How did I survive? I don't know. Even GB, I'm not sure GB has the answer to the question of how he himself has survived. Okay, but on a more serious note, I think the answer is we enjoyed what we were doing, man. We just absolutely enjoyed the grind. And when I say grind, it was crazy grind. Because for starters, our office was in Lekki. I was
Providence
living,
Street.
no, was Olubomi Rotimi at that point in time.
Oh, okay.
It was like a duplex.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, we're not a lot. I think we're 20, 50 or something like that. And I would, drive or come from, no, I wasn't driving then. I would come from Shomolu to the island every single day. There's a story there that I guess we'll come back to. But I'll get to the office around 5 a.m. Super early. And I would just get straight into work. But here's the thing. When it gets to like noon, right, I'm tired.
Naturally.
I would then just sleep under the desk, right? And that became the beginning of like the next phase of Flutterwave culture-wise. Because apparently, I didn't know back then, they had a dress code. Right, corporate casual. You should be expected. GB is from the bank, head of HR is from the bank. So it's like corporate casual, and some of the engineers were from the bank as well, so they were used to it. Me, on the other hand, I don't know what you mean by corporate casual. I'm coming from delivery science. We wear slippers to the office, and we were sleeping anywhere in the office. Right, we were developers, and HR would escalate, to GB. And GB would call me into the office with HR and be like, okay, so what's going on? HR would be like, yeah, like you are sleeping under the table. You shouldn't even be sleeping during, work hours. And I'll be like, yeah, but I'm doing my work, right? And also like the room that we were working from was essentially for just developers, right? CBN or people from the bank would not come in there. And if we're not doing any meetings, why couldn't we sleep when we need to? And people will take a pause and be like, I think that makes sense. Victoria. Victoria, don't you think that makes sense? and I'll be like, awesome, right? But I continue to push the boundaries of the rules because I would come to the office in shorts. I would come to the office with slippers, and then people were following suit, right?
Yeah,
and
because that's the point of our culture. Because
Exactly.
It's like once they see that you're getting away with it, it's like that means it's allowed now.
Exactly. But there were positives to it. People that would usually come late to the office because of traffic, maybe they're coming from the mainland or coming from Aja or whatever, would now come to the office early and either sleep when they get to the office or just start working. And like by noontime, they will take a nap and then continue, right? But I think, to be fair, GB allowed that because we were proving to be focusing on the work. So like work wasn't lacking. We were hardworking. We were doing a lot. We were doing rave. We were doing Bata. If you remember Bata.
I remember Bata.
God rest Bata's soul. We were absolutely doing a lot, right? GB would throw us into the depths of the ocean, and we would come out, right? Like on skate, really cool. And I think GB liked that. And I think it was at that point, I think GB himself was identifying the kinds of people he would like to work with at the company. A relaxing culture as well. So if you were like a front-facing person, okay, dress a certain way. If you are going to go for meetings, dress a certain way. Or if we are going to be expecting visitors at the office, we'll be informed beforehand, so we'll not wear shorts. right? So we would not wear on slippers. But like the core of it was that engineering team that was just fantastic. Like we worked so well together. It felt like a football team. More like Man City, not Arsenal, right?
Don't be
Because
rude.
they've been gelling. They've gelled now. There's still no trophy. But like it was that kind of synergy, right? And that gave rise to something. My friend who is still there right now, um, front end engineer. I was a front end engineer slash designer. Remember from delivery science, right? And we were sitting next to each other, and one day we just said, "Yo, why don't you focus on just designing, and I'll focus on coding, and let's see if we can work faster." That was the goal. Like I told you, we were enjoying this thing. The goal was to always like get faster, get faster, get faster, and we're like, okay, let's try that out. And I started designing, it will code it. I started designing, it will code it. Look, the synergy was so good that it could predict what I was going to design and start coding it while I was designing, right? It was incredible. And we were doing great work as well. But that was how I essentially became designer, solely a designer, right? And then we built out the team from there, from just me to, as at when I left, I think 23 designers, but I was also managing a product team. We'll get it.
Okay, so there's another question. There's something I have, which again, in terms of having been there in one era and kind of seen it grow so much,
all its errors.
what was a specific moment? Like when you realize something like, oh shit, this thing is real.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you, like at Flutterwave? What was that moment for you at Flutterwave?
I think there were two moments, right? The first one was when we brought Rave to life. I would call it Rave version 2, right? Remember I told you when I joined, we needed to start building like actual products, not just APIs. So we did the first version, was rough or whatever. I think we had about 1,000 customers, or 1,000 or 2,000 customers, right? But remember I told you that like GB likes to set the vision, but trust you to just execute and bring your own ideas. We got this idea where we felt like the reason why we were not signing up a lot of customers was the only people who could sign up were like properly like set up and formal businesses, right? You were fully registered, you have CSC, you have bank accounts, you have corporate bank accounts, all those requirements to basically accept payments. So we decided to create like another kind of account, right? I'm trying to remember what we named it. But essentially, you could create a Flutterwave account with just like any valid government ID, right? So it could be your passport, it could be your national ID card or whatever, or your driver's license. The account will be very, very limited, right? Like in features and like what you can do as well, right? Just so we stay within the bounds of the law, right? I think that was my idea alongside that my team, right? Or the team I was working with at that time. It sounded extremely funny, right? But we're like, let's just try it. We created that, deployed it, announced it, and I think we went from 1,000 or 2,000 customers to about 20,000 in 2 months. But why that was an incredible moment was I had a lot of pressure on me because I was trying to like design, like I was trying to now get us into like a design user experience, like focused approach, which is this is why we should do this, right? This is how the customer is likely thinking about it and stuff like that. And like, I think a lot of people were just not, they were just like, what is this? Okay, let's just code this thing or let's just build this thing and go. And that was this like the moment that essentially started like the design team at the company, because it was like what we did, it worked, And GB was like, yeah, let's get started. Let's start hiring more designers because obviously this is a very,
there's a
important
need
part.
for it.
Yeah, that was the first moment. But as at then, I don't think I was that into like our revenues or whatever it is until I think we raised, I think it was Series A, right? GB just came into the office one time. It was like, oh, we're going to announce a new raise today or tomorrow. And this is how much we raised. And I was like, what?
How much was it? How much was Series A?
Yo, was it 8 million or something? Or 10 million, thereabouts. That was a lot of money. Also because of what it meant. It meant we could get out of that office. We're so tired of that duplex, and all of that stuff. But that was the moment I think we all knew we're not going to fail. Like this thing is actually real. It's no longer like dreams. So let's even like put in more, more efforts. And I think I locked in. I moved from the from the mainland closer to the office. Well, there's a reason I almost died. But yes, those were the two defining moments. But also because the company was very people centric. The company is still very, very, very like people centric.
So something I've seen, and is with the Paystack Flutterwave thing.
Yeah.
So you went from being my guys,
Yeah.
and then you work for the ops,
Yeah.
and then you kind of obviously are now associated with Flutterwave.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm curious about is, and I mean, I'm sure this is supposed to be a hard question for you because it feels like Flutterwave is not as progressive culturally as the other guys are. And with what
Yeah.
like, how do you kind of obviously navigate that conversation? Like, how do you?
Yeah. Oh, so it's always been the same misconception, right? But like the way to think about it is similar companies doing similar, things, but just approaching it wildly different ways, right? With wildly different outcomes as well, right? Which just shows that there's no one way to do things. Flutterwave does have like amazing structure. I was there for 8 years. I wouldn't have wouldn't have stayed there for that long, especially if I thought, oh, let me just go to Paystack, I'll be fine, I will be, much
You're ready.
much better off there, right? But yes, that was something. And I think the major difference is in expression of the culture. We Flutterwave guys just were not talking much online, right? But Paystack had like a face or many faces. They were constantly talking about their culture, what they loved about it. We were not. We were just so into the work, really, and just like we cared about ourselves, but for ourselves, right? But also because we desperately wanted to actually just stop that entire comparison, right? Like it wasn't doing anybody any good. And I think our approach
we can have two bad bitches.
Not intentionally, to be honest. Our approach was we just weren't talking, right? You would have Ezra always constantly, tweeting, Okpe, just these people who write.
Medium post.
These people. So that was it. But like, we knew it was a problem. We just were introverts. Yeah,
and that's fine.
We just were introverts, and like that's what I would say is like the major difference, right? A way I can also describe it is, I hope people understand the references. There's Stripe in the US, and there's Adyen as well, right? In Europe. If you ask any random person, just Stripe or Adyen, people will just say Stripe. Stripe is a lot more famous. They are like Paystack, which makes sense.
right?
They
own Paystack now.
Yeah, so like they are constantly expressing, what they are doing in beautiful ways, amazing
I love their
storytelling.
founders.
Yes,
They,
and it's
they
very
tweet well.
founder-led.
Yeah.
Flutterwaves is founder-led, but not online. You are not going to see GB picking up his phone and just.
But I've heard it's very online.
He is. It's just not.
Yeah, because I've heard that he's actually he's a locker. Like he's
So
seeing and hearing
keeps,
everything.
yes, so it tries to stay in touch, right, with culture and stuff like that. It's just not the type to. And if you think about it, Paystack as well, Shola doesn't tweet, but he has a co-founder that does and stuff like that, right? That's not something we had, right? Again, Flutterwave was built with a banking culture foundation. Let's not forget.
The thing is, I think you're correct. I mean, it's also maybe if Ian had stayed longer.
Yes.
Because I think, he would have
exactly,
done that. But it's just the dynamic was not the same.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to talk about GB.
Yeah.
It's one thing, like there are not many people who are kind of known by if it's like one name or like alias. But like obviously GB is one of those.
Yeah.
GB is an absolute icon in the tech space.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's not someone who is. He's not coming to Shalaye. He's not coming to explain himself.
Yeah.
And you have given different hints. But what I want to know is what that experience of working for a leader like GB is, and also what type of leader is he? Like.
Okay. If you are watching this, GB, forgive me. GB is a crazy person. That's the way to put it. Crazy in a good way. But if you are crazy, you be crazy in a bad way too.
Yeah.
But mostly like crazy in a good way. He's the most audacious person I have ever met. It's like, to put it into context, hardly anybody has pulled off a $3 billion valuation. People think it's like valuation games. It's not. It's next to impossible to try to replicate what Flutterwave has already done, right? GB is very ambitious, and I guess that's where that craziness comes from, right? It's like, okay, we did 1 million in revenue. Okay, so like the next stage is not 2 million, it's not 3 million,
10.
It's like 10 million. And you're like, okay, let's do 5, let's do 3 now. Like, how do we want to get there? And he's the kind of person that will just be like, okay, hold my beer, right? I'm not like, really, it's the kind of person that will not ask you or ask of you what he is not willing to do as well. So if you are working 12 hours a day, GB is already doing 16 hours a day, right? Like, if you pick up your phone 3 a.m. to call GB, it's going to pick up the phone, and not in a sleepy voice. In like, oh, Alpha, how you day? Kind of thing, right? And I think that influenced all of us as well, right? But that's just the kind of person that he is, but also GB cares a lot about like winning together, right? Which I think is reflected in, like, I guess maybe startups is invested in as well, right? Or the way he just tries to help, people in the ecosystem. It's always been like a let's win together, right? So crazy, ambitious, man, he knows exactly what he wants. Unfortunately, he just never stops. That man never stops, never sleeps. Is the kind of person that would say, I want us to build, oh, Ted. So he walks into the office. I'm like, oh, Ted, please, come. So I have this idea. Then he narrates the idea and then says, I'm leaving it to you. I'm like, okay, cool. And then you are walking out because you're like, it's fine. We've just discussed it. We'll go and scope it out or whatever. And be like, Ted, today is Thursday. Can I get this on Sunday? And you're like, today's Thursday, so tomorrow is Friday, right? And then Saturdays, there's no work, right? And like, can I get it on Sunday? And your first instinct, of course, is this thing is supposed to take at least 2 to 3 months to do, or to even do properly, right? And you're like, yeah, you can do this thing. And to be honest, we always did it, right? So, and I think internally, we're always telling ourselves that, oh, did we enable GB, right? Did we enable this behavior? Because every time it comes and says, it needs this in 2 days, we'll complain, but we'll still go and do it, right? That's the kind of person that, GB is. Now, what it feels like working with him, the first thing I would say is GB has your back, always, all the goddamn time. There's no day, there's no period. There's even when I was leaving, it's like whatever you need in this life, just come to me first. If I can't do it, I'll help you find somebody that can do it. Right? That's the kind of person GB is. So while he would demand your blood, right? He's going to give his blood as well, right? But he's always going to have your back. He's always going to listen to you. He cares deeply, right, about the people the company is building, the market he's serving, just generally. That's the kind of person that GB is, yeah. But he also likes staying in the background, believe it or not. He just likes staying in the background.
So there's something you said where it's like he's never satisfied.
Even now, it's like, oh God, you are the biggest fintech.
And
chill.
the gossip.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that it's gossip, but the received wisdom is that obviously his goal is Flutterwave IPOs because that is important for the ecosystem because no one else would have done it.
Yeah.
But it will also be, Ezra talks about becoming unbelievably liquid. That will be the moment of supernatural liquidity. And what I'm curious about is, do you even think after that, do you think he'll be satisfied?
No. I don't know. GB will probably start something else. That's if he ever leaves Flutterwave anyways. But he will likely start something else. He's very restless. He's completely like restless. He's always thinking about, like, there was a period we like fought internally because we just wanted to stop. We're like, let's stop. We've built enough, right? Let's stop. But GB is like, what do you mean stop? You stop, you die, right? There's a way he says it. But no, like, my answer to you is I don't think he will ever stop. He's still young now.
Fair enough.
He's still young now. So whether it's acquisition, whether it's IPO, yes, he will be unbelievably liquid. But I think the beautiful thing about that is most of the people who's worked with him will also.
Yeah. Those stock options are very important. Don't worry, I'll ask you about your own. Okay. So you left Flutterwave recently.
Yeah.
To start a new venture.
Yeah, Mira.
So talk to me about Mira. What is Mira? And why did you feel you had reached the point where you wanted to leave the nest and go and fly solo?
I don't know, it's controversial. It's like many reasons. The way I like to say it is, I don't know, I'm 30 now, but like at 30, I'm already VP of product and design at one of the biggest companies in Africa. Sometimes I say, I don't know, I'm too young. Maybe I got there too early. So it's like, okay, now what's next? I'm not going to be Flutterwave CEO. I don't want to be chief anything, right? Or whatever. So it was time to leave, to be honest. And to be fair, I had been trying to leave. I've been trying to leave.
That's another thing I've heard. That doesn't
like people leaving him.
It won't release you.
Okay, wait, let's be careful. No. So it's not like that. Obviously, he wants to always.
No, but it's normal. Everyone,
he wants to keep his best people. So he would ask you, right? Like, okay, like, what's the dissatisfaction? Let's solve it, right?
His money will give you more. If it's working conditions, don't worry.
Exactly. If it's working conditions, let's improve it. Let's figure it out, right? But like, you should stay. Let's get to year 10, right? Or stuff like that. But to be honest, I was tired. Like I told you, like number one, I started working extremely early, right? And then it's like getting into Flutterwave was work every single time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, and like so, this is not in a bad way. I also never rested. Of my own volition, right? No sabbatical, no nothing. I was just grinding, right? I loved it, but I just got tired, right? And to be fair, I would say there was a moment with Flutterwave and like all the things in the news, many falls, some maybe true or whatever. It was very mentally draining because I don't think I had seen so much hate or vitriol, right? Like just sent towards like a company in that way, shape, or form. And because of how much I loved the company, um, it took a toll. I was
Okay.
like, you guys don't like why you guys acting like you don't know what we do? Like what this is Flutterwave. Why so much hate or whatever it was back then. So I was tired, right? And I think I literally told you I need to rest. Okay, you know what? Let's do sabbatical. Let's do sabbatical, right? Which is what we did. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you are on, that was when I found Mira. But here's the thing: I'd always wanted to do what Mira is doing now, even while I was in Flutterwave, right? I strongly believed that like that was the next right thing,
So would you have done that within Flutterwave, or
Yes, if there was the opportunity to,
okay?
most likely, but like it would have derailed us
The
a
larger
little bit.
vision,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So it was better off being done outside. And it's just this thing where it's like, the way I always say it is everybody's building for payments now, right? Flutter, Paystack, Money Points, Paga, everybody. Payment is largely.
Sorry if you didn't mention you. You guys, your work is still important.
Yes, I just can't mention everybody. Okay, Carrywise, Piggyvest, all of that. And nobody seemed to be building for the businesses, right? It's like the last stage of a business transaction is okay, make payments. But there's a lot
That goes
going
on
on in the
before
background,
that.
and like nobody was building for that, even though it was very obvious that needed to be built, right? Because in the US we have the likes of Square, Toast for restaurants, and the likes in the UK, Clover and stuff like that. But like I was like, okay, this is cool. I love fintech. It's still very close, or it's like fintech adjacent, right? But it's not fintech, which means that like it can be slower paced. So while I'm technically not resting, like I said I wanted to, it's still not as intense, yes, as it would have been, or as it were at Flutterwave. So yeah, we started Mira. It had many phases now, but the idea essentially came when myself and my wife, who is from Paystack, but we met at Delivery Science. Yeah, segue.
That's why you see. That's why no. I go back to the delivery science being like, I get it. I get it.
And so we were doing brunch, right, at some rooftop restaurant in London, Canary Wharf. We walked in. We decided we wanted to sit outside, and then at the table or on the table there was like a QR code, right? Nothing fancy. Everybody has experienced QR code and it's shitty, right? If you ask the average person. But we scanned the QR code, and lo and behold, it wasn't shitty. It wasn't a PDF. It was like an actual
Like a storefront.
interactive
Yeah.
menu, right? So we placed our order, and we were curious to see if we would actually need to like wave at a waiter to inform them that we placed our order. But no, like when the waiter would come out, they came with our drinks, and our starter and whatever, and they were like, oh, when we are done, we can pay from the link as well, or we can keep ordering. And then we paid Apple Pay, and that was it. And I was like, yo, what?
You have
Like,
to interact with anybody.
this is amazing, and this would be great in Lagos, right? Like, people don't like QR codes, but it's not because of the QR code technology in itself, it's the implementation
Session
of
here.
it. Let's do this. So, we did it, we
Who's
tried
we?
it.
Was your wife involved?
Yes.
Okay.
We did it, we tried it. Restaurants, so diners loved it, right? Because number one, the first experience, they're always pleasantly surprised, like, oh wait, it's not a PDF. Oh, this is actually nice. Oh, I can order. The restaurants liked it as well, but there was a problem. It was adding one more step to their workflow, and that's because most, right? People can hold me to it. Most restaurants in Nigeria don't actually use systems. They don't use a point of sale system. So here's where I'll educate you guys. Right? It's a point of sale terminal, which is what you know as money points. That's a terminal. The point of sale system is like a full suite of software that's behind the operations of, think about any major restaurant or retail business that you know. So you walk into ShopRite, they have that, monitor looking type thing. There's a whole ass system, behind it, right? Managing inventory, operations, and stuff like that. So that's point of sale system. So most restaurants either didn't have a point of sale system, or they had one that was just old and like couldn't handle API integration. So essentially it's stuck in like the 90s or 80s or whatever, right? So there was no way we could. So the best scenario would have been, you scan the QR code as a customer, you place the order, it just goes straight to their system, right? And then the kitchen sees it and prepares it. But now the restaurant had to check another phone or a tablet to see that a table had placed their order and then punch it into their own system again, right? And that was when we realized, oh wait, the bigger opportunity here is to
improve
actually
the
build
systems for the restaurants.
exactly. And that's pretty much what we started, doing, right? So started building point of sale systems for restaurants.
How's the implementation been like?
It's been going exactly how I'd like, in the sense that I'm a very crafty, like I love to build, and we had to spend a lot of time building the system because it had to be good.
Yeah.
Right. Or we wanted it to be really good. Right. So we did that. We have about 600 businesses now. We have the likes of Olaya,
My faves.
Grey Matter, Fire and Ice. We have pharmacies, we have like, retail businesses, we have like Ashlocks. So it's like, it's going well now. Now I've mentioned retail businesses, I've mentioned pharmacies, I've mentioned, beauty spas, which basically indicates we no longer just focus on restaurants now.
So it's
like
now a
full
proper B2B business.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
And so we're at the end of this
Yeah.
interview, and it's been fun. I've really, I honestly, I didn't like the paths and segues we've gone on. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
So I end as usual with 2 questions.
Okay.
So the first one, if you could suggest, seeing as, to be honest, one person suggested you.
Yeah, I think that was Nana. Either Nana or
No, it was Fuad.
Okay.
Fuad suggested you.
Yeah.
And that was, I swear to God,
Yeah.
the time I've done this show, that was the first time someone said a name of someone that I did not know.
Ah, nice.
And so I was like, who's that? and I think when because Asemota tweeted about that episode, and he was like, I would love to watch one with Ted. So as we're doing this, like one day I was like, oh, when this episode comes out, I'm just gonna quote that tweet and put it on there. But if you could, like, pick guests for me, to have this conversation with, who are the people you're picking?
I'll say Yinka.
There's a story around that.
Okay.
I was supposed to do it once. He cancelled on the day.
It's terrible. Please try again. And I'm saying that because whatever you think you know about Ashlocks or Ashcorp as the actual name is wrong.
Interesting.
Whatever you think you might know about the size of the fashion industry is wrong. And it will be the best person to actually sit, to actually like they are running like an incredible business, and it's been doing it for like 10 years now. Started from like actually selling from the boot of his car, like it's not story, it's real to what it is now. So I would say Yinka, if you can do it again. Second person, Ezra.
I would love to do Ezra.
Ezra.
Okay.
Yeah, Ezra Olubi. Yeah, I think you should.
Okay, is that all?
I think you should.
Do you want to suggest anyone else?
Maybe Annie Roberts.
Okay. I hadn't thought about that one, but we'll add him to the list.
Yes, there's a lot in there, from photography to art now to managing a studio. Right? There's a very interesting story that I think people should know there. Yep.
Okay. And finally, you sat on me for about an hour.
Yeah.
We've dug into every detail we could around your life. I think it's only right that I allow you.
Yes.
So what's the question? What question do you have for me? If there is any.
2 questions.
Okay. I love
Number one.
I love when people come prepared.
How did you get into art? Right?
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2, why are you doing this?
Okay.
And like, what about it keeps you going?
Okay, so the first question, how did I get into art? Honestly, I don't even know that there's a right answer. I think it's just
Stumbled into it.
Yeah, like it's just looking at things and just having like a reaction.
Yeah.
So what reaction does this kind of inspire me?
Yeah.
Sometimes I hang around people and I'm like, I feel like I don't even know anything about it because I'm like, the things they're seeing, me, I'm not seeing it. But I guess that's the beauty of it. It's very subjective.
Yeah.
But I also think part of what it does is also like the storytelling behind it. So I like art that has like symbolism.
Yeah.
That you look at something and there's no barcode or QR code, but it's like you can picture what the person's story is or what's the story tells.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think for me that's just it. It's just like, okay, what do I find interesting in this?
Yeah.
And now to the question of was it why I'm doing this?
Yeah.
And what keeps it going?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing this because I'm obsessed with stories. I'm obsessed with people's journeys. And I think there's a lot for us to learn from just having these conversations. There are so many things. Like, I mean, someone sent me a 30-minute voice notes last night based on watching the episode we just put out. And I'm like, yo, like, who is this? This is a podcast. I listen to 30 minutes voice note. But guess what? This morning I actually listened to all 30 minutes of it. And so there are it has so many uses for people. So it's like they're the people who come here for the inspiration. They're the people who come here just to feel validated. Like that, oh, this thing I'm feeling, it's not unique to me. Like, oh, going through this journey or feeling like this thing is a struggle. It's normal. Everyone will go through it. And so for me, it's like, okay, we're trying to obviously document all these stories. We're hoping that people can obviously learn a lot from it, but that, it's also is like an opportunity for
maintain.
Yeah, for also like for the people who are coming here, because I would have, when I speak to people, I've immersed myself. So I've sat on LinkedIn, I've read old interviews, I've watched anything you've been on just because I'm looking for that one or two that maybe you haven't said, but then sometimes it just helps me like paint the full picture. So the point is, okay, I'm doing all this research because ultimately we're going to give it back to the audience. And the other thing for me is that it's also because I've started to think about, we might need to do an overnight success book just because there are all these learnings that I need to distill somewhere that is not letting not just exist on like YouTube. And in terms of what keeps me going, I think it's just new conversations, like, and then also feeling like the platform is growing. So, so the diversity of like the people we talk to.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk to people from the tech world. We're going to talk to people who work within creative. We're going to talk to people who are kind of at the intersection of like business and creative.
Yeah.
And it's just being able to just hear all these stories. Because like now today, as we've been having this conversation, when you were talking about GB, I was just like, wow, like GB should come and Flutterwave should come and pay money for the PR that has been done on this episode, because it is so distinct from a lot of what we have heard or what we've been taught to hear.
Yeah.
But like, those both perspectives can stand. Both perspectives are valid. And so it's just talking to people and learning new things, seeing the world differently, and just kind of unraveling their journeys with them in a way where, sometimes maybe you might not even have thought about something, or like just the impact of what it is. I think it's cathartic too for the people who come here. Yeah. Like, it's just like, oh wow, like, okay. Because I mean, sometimes you ask people, what were you thinking when you did this? It's like, bro, I wasn't thinking anything. Even now, it's just now I'm connecting it. Like I make it's things like that. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. No, you're doing an incredible job.
Thank you.
And I think what you're doing is very important, like extremely important, right? My friends, I'm very into podcasts and I'm constantly looking for stories, but like we don't have enough of like stories of like Nigerians or just Africans in general about what we are doing. It's like if I want to learn about Johnny Hive or Steve Jobs,
their books and resources.
We have lots of podcasts, acquired founders, like so many resources. So I think that what you're doing is really important, right? Like I relate to it as well, which is kind of like why like I'm helping out with archiving as well, because those stories are important. Yeah. But yeah, it was great.
So thank you, Ted, for a very enriching conversation. To the viewers at home, thank you for watching. Catch you next week.